All right, folks. Thank y'all so much for tuning in with me on this Saturday night. We've not done a Saturday night show in a while, and I've got a very special episode for you today, and I'm really excited about it. This has been one of my most requested guests since I started doing this kind of thing. And so it's been a long time coming, and I'm not even going to really do too big of a long introduction because I just want to get right down to it. I'm super excited to be bringing on to the show today Mr. Richard Ojeda. Richard, man, it's great to see you finally.
What's up, my brother? Finally, we're on the podcast together. Outstanding.
Finally made it. And
Yeah.
you just announced that you're running for Congress, North Carolina District 9, man. That's some really exciting news. And I really had so many people in the comments already excited to see that, man. So what brought you to this point?
Well, I think it's just, looking around and seeing what's going on right now in our government, knowing that, as long as I've been here, and I've been living in this area right now for 3 years. Now, I lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and owned homes for almost 20 straight years. I spent the majority of my military career at Fort Bragg. But when we come back here, it's like you can absolutely see that your representative don't pay no attention to this area here. And he's a swamp monster. He's a huge trumpaloon. And I'm gonna bust his ass. I'm gonna make him have to work his ass off, and I'm gonna beat him. I'm gonna flip this seat from red to blue. I'm gonna go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to start saying the things that need to be said. And that's what I plan on doing.
Man, it's great to hear it. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Now, I know you grew up in West Virginia, and I'm from Southeast. I grew up right on the state line of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. So I'm down in Southeast Kentucky, East Tennessee. And so we both have those Appalachian roots. And what was your upbringing politically in West Virginia when you was younger?
Well, I knew about Democrats because all of my family were Democrats. And I'm going to tell you that I watched all of my uncles on picket lines nonstop. I mean, there were always strikes going on with the coal miners. And that's what one whole side of my family, all my uncles were coal miners. So, I pretty much, knew what the Democrat was. But when I turned, when I graduated from high school, you only had 3 choices: dig coal, sell dope, or join the army. So, I chose the military. And I have to say, the dig coal side, all of my uncles pulled all of us together when we were kids and said, don't you dare follow us into these mines, because it's nothing but struggle. It's feast or famine. You're working good. You got everything you need. And then all of a sudden you're striking, and everything that you own has a for sale sign on it. And I watched that my entire growing up. I also had members of my family that messed with the drugs and went to prison. So to me, I knew that I didn't want to go to prison. I didn't want to sell drugs. I knew that I didn't want to dig coal. So I joined the military, and it was probably the best decision ever. And a lot of people where you and I come from, that's one of the only outs that they have. Right. You could stay there and you could either dig coal or be poor. Or you can, try to, join the military. And the military was the greatest thing in the world for me, because I'll be honest with you, I loved the discipline. I loved it. And I learned really fast that, if they call your name and you run and you lock it up at parade rest and you do everything that they tell you to do without question, my goodness gracious, they promote you and treat you better. So life was good in the military for me. So I loved it.
Yeah. And I can imagine coming from, West Virginia and then having an opportunity like that, because that's one thing. As you were talking, I'm sitting there thinking that's exactly how it was where I came from. And when we were growing up, we were told that, our part of the world would boom. Like I remember back in the 80s and 90s, going through school and stuff, people was talking about how that our part of the world would boom. And over in Bell County, Kentucky, where I'm from, we got a thing now that's called the Bridge to Nowhere. And basically what this was, there was supposed to be this big industrial park that was supposed to come to our part of the world and all these opportunities for us. And the coal companies completely kicked against it. And so eventually it all come to a halt. And you go over there now to the road, there's a nice bridge they built across the river there, and you go up in the mountains, and all of a sudden the road just dead stops. And the only thing that people do now is just drive up to that road and then get on their 4-wheelers and drive around and drink beer. That's pretty much what it was. And it's one of those things that, was just such a missed opportunity for people like us. And I've seen our part of the world just go down so hard because of it.
It's the same thing, everything that, wants to come to West Virginia, solar panels, windmills and stuff like that. The moment people start talking about in West Virginia, all of a sudden, all the coal operators get everybody all fired up and say that if they come to West Virginia, your coal mining jobs are going to be gone. And, you know, this is the sad part, is that the cold jobs are really the only jobs around there, other than like nurses or things like that, that you can actually raise a family with. So they're very, very protective of those jobs. So if somebody says, hey, we're talking about solar panels, they automatically oppose that. And I'm talking about the legislature in the state of West Virginia, which I served as a senator. I'm going to tell you, you know, it's not a place where they look for opportunities to bring capabilities to West Virginia to help these people that are poor. They don't. They want to keep it the way that it is, and that's just the way that it is. And it's just not. It doesn't work. And you know, a lot of people end up staying and living their lives, and they get about, you know, to a certain level, but they can't go no higher. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, and what do you think, you know, as a congressman, what do you think you could do to face the opioid crisis that we've dealt with here in Appalachia?
Let me tell you something. I will physically throw Big Pharma out of my office if they try to come in there and talk to me about voting on bills that benefit, you know, the Big Pharma. Let me tell you something. You and I both know that we were the lab rats. Our areas were the lab rats for the opioid epidemic. They came down to your area, my area, Eastern Kentucky, and they convinced those doctors, hey, if you want to, you know, you want to take a weekend at Atlantic City, we got you covered. You know, here, instead of giving out Motrin, give this out. It's called Oxycontin. And the thing about it was that, you know, it went through our areas and it just decimated the population. There's not a family in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky that doesn't have somebody that they've lost from the opioids. And I will tell you that the garbage governor of West Virginia right now, he was the attorney general for the state of West Virginia. And I believe it was his wife or somebody that was close to him that was a lobbyist for Big Pharma. And, you know, Oklahoma sued Big Pharma and won something like $160 billion from the opioid, you know, from the companies that push the opioids. You know what West Virginia got? A whopping $2 million. And the current governor, who was the attorney general, held up a big check that says $2 million. We should have got more than anybody, because once again, we were the lab rats. They actually confiscated emails from these people that were saying, keep them coming, boys. They're eating them up like Doritos. You keep them making them, they keep it taking them. That shows you how bad these people were. And I'm going to tell you right now, I will oppose Big Pharma. I will do everything in my power to make sure that everything that we need to help with this opioid crisis is going to be out of their pockets, because that's what needs to happen. And we shouldn't be using our tax dollars. There should be a daggone a drug recovery center in every community where we come from, and it should be paid for by Big Pharma, and that's it.
I agree, man. And you know, something I was thinking as you were saying that, you know, our part of the world where we're from, we were the lab rats for sure. But as all this stuff happened and unfolded, you know, people have lost faith in the system. A lot of people are disillusioned with the system, and a lot of people, you know, fell right into the hands of Donald Trump. So how do we go about bringing people back to our side and help them understand that, you know, we're two people from their part of the world. We grew up with them. We care about them. We want to see them do better. We don't want to see them used and exploited the way that Trump has done it. So how do we manage to restore some faith in people like us?
Well, you know, we have to find the right people that are willing to run for office and fight these battles. You know, that is absolutely crucial in this country right now. And if it's not just the opioid epidemic, it's bringing capabilities. I mean, this is what bothers me, because once again, I ran for Congress in 2018 in West Virginia. And the truth is I should have won that race. I busted my ass. I did everything. But Donald Trump come down there, campaigned against me, and I lost. But let me tell you something. The person that beat me has been elected 4 terms already. She has not brought the first single dime back to her state, not one single capability. But she did get herself a $3.1 million PPP loan. And you know what? Honestly, this is what bothers me, because they keep reelecting these people that don't care about them, that don't go to Washington, D.C. If you're in Washington, D.C., your job is to not only represent, but your job is to also work with everything you have to bring more capabilities and more funding back to your state. Now, I'm in North Carolina right now. Do you know North Carolina is 49th in the country when it comes to how much money we spend per child to go to school? 49th. We're 44th in pay. for teachers and school service personnel. And don't you ever forget school service personnel, because you can't run a school without a bus driver, a custodian, a cook, a special needs aide, a secretary. So don't ever forget those folks. But we pay 44th. We are 9th in terms of population growth. So if we're 9th in the country in population growth, shouldn't our teachers be paid maybe 9th in the country in terms of pay? And how much we spend towards our kids, should we be 9th in that? But we're not. We're up in the bottom. And that's unacceptable. We need to find people that'll go to Washington, D.C. and fight for the people, in our districts. When I was a senator of West Virginia, I had literally just thrown Big Energy Big Energy. I just threw them out of my office. And a guy by the name of Rusty Williams poked his head in and said, Senator Ojeda, would you like to have a conversation about medical cannabis? And I was like, all right, whatever, man, come on in here, because I didn't want to be rude. And he sits down, he starts talking, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And then he says, it also helps people that struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was like, whoa, what? And then that kind of made me go, whoa, let me do a little bit of research. And I did some research. And I was like, my goodness gracious, this is it. This is my fight. I have just won my Senate seat. This is my first week as a senator in West Virginia. And I'm going to fight for cannabis, medical cannabis. And of course, the Democrats told me, don't do it. You're going to make a lot of enemies. Nobody's going to pass it. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. And I said, I don't give a shit. Because the truth is I didn't come here for you. I didn't come here to be your friend. I came here because I want to try to elevate the people where I come from. And I got the people behind me. And in the last day of the legislative session, we were able to get medical marijuana passed in West Virginia. And that's a big deal, because once again, also think about all the people that are struggling with opioids. Cannabis is another thing that you can use instead of opioids to help get you off of those addicted pills. So, that's one of the things. I fought to get corrections, not 1, but 2 pay raises. And let me tell you something. I'm going to do the same thing to bring money back from Washington, D.C., not only to come to North Carolina for the teachers and school service personnel, but I want money to come here for the corrections as well, because I was very proud of that in West Virginia, because a police officer will deal with an asshole for 3 hours. Corrections will deal with them for the next 3 to 30 years. And they are a rough job to have. But I'm telling you right now, some of the best people you will ever meet is when you get an opportunity to go visit regional jails and prisons and watch these people that go every day to work and keep the friggin' wolves at bay. But then, of course, also the teacher strike happened, and I'll be honest with you. I had no idea that was going to explode the way that it did. I had retired from the military, went back to West Virginia, and I started teaching at the local high schools. I was able to convince the Board of Education to open JROTC programs in all 3 high schools, and I oversaw all 3 of the high schools. But I spent most of my time working at Chapmanville. I got other people to do the other schools. But every single day during lunch, I would listen to how bad it was for the teachers. Their insurance was garbage, and they were trying to push this program called Go 365 that was just horrendous. And I stood up in the Senate chamber, and I told the senators, I said, if you guys don't start showing respect to the teachers in this state, they're talking about striking. And that was it. I went home and I got a phone call from Mingo County Schools. And they said, would you be willing to get in your car and drive here to a meeting? So I got in my car and I drove all the way to Mingo County, went to the meeting, and I got there and I saw all these people. All the teachers and school service personnel were there. And I will tell you, I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to strike. And when I left there, I said, tomorrow they're going to go on strike. And the next day they went on strike. And 5 days later, all 55 counties were on strike in West Virginia. We fought that battle for 9 days. The Republicans absolutely was hating every breath I breathed. But you know what really won that fight? It wasn't just the teachers and school service personnel, which were 28,000 in the Capitol singing, we're not going to take it. But when you walked out the door of that Capitol, you saw a tent that said United Mine Workers of America. You saw over here a sign that said the Teamsters. You saw the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, the Communication Workers of America, the pipe fitters, the boilermakers, the painters. They were all there. And the Republicans realized that they couldn't go against us, because if they did, they were going to piss off the sleeping giant. And they caved, and we won that fight. I'm very proud of my time in West Virginia. I will say something on this show so that people see. Some people will say, well, he resigned. The reason why I resigned my seat was because I decided to run for Congress. And the one thing that I believed was important was that there was always somebody sitting in my seat. Because if I'm out here running for office, I'm kind of shirking my responsibilities as a state senator. So I went ahead and resigned, and people gave me hell over that. But I just didn't think that it was right for me to draw the pay and to leave a seat empty when they needed that vote. Because every once in a while, even though the Republicans had a super majority, sometimes we would get into arguments and we would get people on our side. And sometimes a Democrat vote was something that caused it to pass. So that's why I thought that was important. So that's why I did what I did. I ran for Congress. I had a phenomenal run. And once again, I should have won it. But, when Donald Trump come down to West Virginia, put on a coal miner's cap and acted like he was working a shovel when we know he ain't never dug a damn thing in his life, it made my numbers go down and we lost. So it was okay.
Yeah, I remember that moment so well, man. It was one of those moments in time where I was sitting there watching people that I grew up with cheering him on for that. And I'm like, guys, he's never had sweat on his brow. He's never had a callus on his hands. He's never went through none of the stuff we've went through, never experienced anything. And it just really was like a punch to the gut to see people fall for that. And it's been that way ever since. There's just more and more people seems to be. I really thought this last go around that we were going to see people start to walk away from it. And now we're back for another dose of Trump. And then what we saw, well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I do want to talk about what we saw yesterday, but I do want to remind everybody, I've been sharing in the comments here the link where they can go and donate to Richard's campaign. So be sure to do that. I got the Vol Queen moderating, and she's been putting it up there too. But if you see this link right here in the comment section, click on that. You can go donate to Richard. But one question I have before we get to what happened yesterday is what brought you from West Virginia, and how'd you wind up in North Carolina?
Well, I spent the majority of my military career. I basically owned houses and lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina while I was at Fort Bragg. Literally, the only time I ever left Fort Bragg was either to go to Korea for a year to get back to Fort Bragg, and of course, Iraq, Afghanistan, stuff like that. So we were in Fayetteville for 20 years. My daughter was born on Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My kids were educated for the most part, in North Carolina. And when we went back to West Virginia and we were there for a while, we made the decision because West Virginia, and I hate to say it, it's almost a lost cause right now. And I hate to say that, but I think the things are going to start turning. I really believe that because I think that, all these people that voted for Donald Trump, these are the very people that are going to be hurt the most. And I think some of them are starting to wake up. But we made the decision that we were going to leave West Virginia, and we were like, where were we going to go? And then, of course, we were like, well, we love living down in North Carolina. So we were looking, and one of the things we wanted to find was we wanted to find a pond. We wanted to live next to a pond. And we looked up in Burlington, North Carolina, and Mount Airy and places like that. We found some places, small ponds, and then we stumbled across what we have here now. And we have a 3-acre pond. We love it, filled with fish. And our property is beautiful. And we have 20 acres, and we built 2 houses. Now we're getting ready. My sister's getting ready to break ground and build her house. My other sister in a couple of years is going to break ground and build her a house. We're going to have just the Ojeda compound, and live here and be there for one another. And that's what we want to do for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad you're running. And like I've told my viewers, be sure to look in the comment section there. I posted the link several times. The Vol Queen's posted it. If you can, donate to Richard's campaign because we need voices like this there. I think, over time, we've talked about it, how that our part of the world, fell, to Donald Trump, and he managed to win them over. But, there's a lot of criticism of Democrats, and there's a lot of people that says, well, how did the Democrats lose the South? And what do you think? What responsibility do you think the Democratic Party bears in losing states like West Virginia and Tennessee and places?
Look, let me tell you something. This is the reason why Democrats controlled West Virginia for 88 years. You want to know why they lost power? Because they sucked. Because they got into those positions and thought, we're Democrats, we can run and we'll never get defeated and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't do jack shit for the people. They pushed legislation on what could benefit them. And I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what happened. And then they lost. And I'm going to tell you, in 2014, West Virginia flipped red. And since then, it has just absolutely went off the rails. But I'm going to tell you this. West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky was underwater 2 weeks ago. Let me
Yes.
tell you this. It took Donald Trump 2 weeks to even acknowledge that West Virginia was underwater. West Virginia went for Donald Trump more than any state. And literally, he sat silent while 2 weeks they went without. Let me tell you something. If a president does not declare an area a disaster zone, the people in that disaster zone can't contact and get anything from FEMA. So there's a lot of people absolutely that are pissed off right now in West Virginia because they went wholeheartedly for Donald Trump. And what was the thanks they got? They got to sit underwater for 2 weeks while he played golf and didn't even acknowledge their issues.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stood out about that to me is I thought to myself, okay, when he could find a way to play politics with California, he did it. You know, it was like, okay, I'm going to hold aid and I'm going to, you know, call him Gavin Newsom and do all the stuff that he done. With West Virginia, it was like he just completely forgot. Like he just completely let him go. Yeah. It was like, because there wasn't nothing there. He didn't have an opportunity to come cosplay as a coal miner this time. You know, it was like there was nothing, he didn't need to. And I said that so many times in so many videos leading up to all this. I would say once he doesn't need people in our part of the world, he'll throw them to the curb. And I think that's just a classic case in point because it's been like the worst flood in 30 years?
Yes. No, since 67. Since 1967. West Virginia, it's the worst flood since 1967. I mean, that's the thing, though, is Donald Trump uses you, and when he doesn't need you anymore, you're gone. If something happens to you and you fall down the ladder, he doesn't care about you anymore. I mean, look, he allowed Rudy Giuliani to destroy his legacy, basically stumping for Donald Trump. And now Rudy Giuliani's, got nothing. Is Donald Trump throwing him a bone? No, he doesn't care because he has no more value. If Donald Trump doesn't look at you as something that he has value with, he doesn't need you. He turns you off. And that's exactly the way that it is. And I see a little bit in the chat there. Somebody said the reason why I resigned because I would lose. Let me tell you something. If I would have ran for re-election in West Virginia, I would have won probably 100% of the vote. Because remember, after the teacher strike, everybody in the state of West Virginia was absolutely loving me. A lot of them were pissed that I resigned my seat because they knew that they had somebody in the Capitol that would stand up against any damn body and fight for them. And I feel bad about that. I really do feel bad about that. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That's one of those things where, you make mistakes in your life. You got to move on with it. I'm in North Carolina right now. I plan on doing everything in my power to flip this seat from red to blue. And I'm going to help teachers. I'm going to help corrections. I'm going to help veterans. Nobody's going to fight for veteran health care better than this guy right here. And I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to stand up to a lot of these assholes.
If there's what would be like the one policy that you feel like you would be the closest to your heart that you would run on the most, that you would love to see changed in your lifetime?
Well, first off, it's all about bringing funding and capabilities back from Washington, D.C. to your state. But there's a few things that I really, really want to do. Why have we never brought back the fairness doctrine? Because understand that when they got rid of the fairness doctrine, that is what created Fox News. Fox News, the company that paid $787 million because they lied. So my thing is we need to bring back the fairness doctrine that says we need honor and integrity in our news media. Understand that when Donald Trump took over, not even 40 days ago, one of the first things he did was he got rid of all the news media on the military bases all over the world, wherever there are U.S. Army troops. Their news media has changed. Now it's only Fox, Newsweek, or Newsmax, and OAN. Folks, let me tell you something. Those are not reputable news stations, but those are the news stations that do everything in their power to convince everybody that Donald Trump is the way, the truth, and the light. So we need to bring back the fairness doctrine and say, if you are caught lying and you are news media, you're going to get hit with a major fine. If you get caught lying a second time, you're going to get placed on a probation where you're going to be taken off the air for 6 months. If you get caught lying a third time, you lose your license. You're never coming back. You're done. Folks, let me tell you something. One of the big problems that we have in this country right now is we have 50% of this country that think that they absolutely know everything because they're getting all their information from Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and the rest of these people. Let me tell you something. That's not true media. That's absolute bullshit and lies is what that is. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about what we saw yesterday. Yeah. But I mean, we need, to me, that's one of the things that I think we really need. There's another thing too I want to talk about, and that is that you're never going to get members of Congress to vote for term limits. Stop even talking about it. It's not going to happen. But we may be able to get them to vote for a 20-year and out. You do 20 years in the Congress, and you can retire with 50% your base pay, just like the military does. 20 years, 50% base pay, you retire. And the reason why I say that's because a lot of people, they know they're not going to make it to 20 years. So they may be willing to vote yes on a bill that says we're tired of people living here forever. It's not supposed to be. The whole concept was a person is selected by their people from their area, and he leaves the farm, goes to Washington, D.C., represents the people for a period of time, then he comes home and gets back on the plow. That's what it was supposed to be. We have at least 11 Republicans, and I know there's a few Democrats too in the Senate that were actually there to impeach to impeach Bill Clinton. So they're there 40-some years. Let me tell you something. How many people that have been in Congress for 40 years really knows what life is like for their constituents? Because I'm going to tell you this. Every one of them. When Mitch McConnell went to Washington, D.C., when John Kennedy from Louisiana went to Washington, D.C., they were two of the poorest people in the daggone Senate and in Congress, period. Two of the poorest. Let me tell you something. They're both multi-millionaires. And if you think that they know what it's like to be back home in Louisiana or in Kentucky, if they know what it's like for those people that struggle, if you think that they know what it's like, you're part of the friggin' problem, because they don't give a shit no more. They've been living in luxury. They've been using insider trading, making all kinds of money. We should not be allowed to play the stock market. I mean, these are the things that I really want to try to push and stop. Because once again, this is why our country is being taken from us. This is why we've got a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that don't give two shits about you and me and the people in this country that aren't billionaires and millionaires. I mean, look at what just recently happened. The Congress just passed a budget that's going to kill $800 million or $1 billion from Medicare, Medicaid. Folks, think about this. I did the math. I did some research. Last year, there were 785 billionaires in the United States of America. Your members of Congress, and there's 435 of them, the majority of them voted to make sure that they screwed over every single person in the United States of America that is old, that is poor, that lives in the middle class or below. They screwed all those people over just so they can make 785 people more money. Let that sink in. And if that doesn't piss you off, then you're not paying attention. Well, I mean, what we're watching, they're coming after everybody. They have fired 6,000 people from the Veterans Administration. They actually killed the jobs of the people that man the phones for the suicide hotline. Now, is that going to lower the number of suicides every day from 22 to 0, or is it going to make it go up? Because I'll tell you, it's going to make it go up when there's nobody there to try to talk that veteran off the ledge. And I'm telling you, what we are watching right now is pure cruelty to the middle class and the poor. And what's sad is that there's middle class and poor people right now that are absolutely defending these friggin' bastards, and they don't care about you. And what did they do? What did they do after they passed a bill that's going to friggin' screw every single middle class person and below in this country? What did they do? Why, they prayed. They had prayer. Thank you, God, for allowing us to screw over the middle class and shit all over the poor. We got to kill school lunches. We're going to do all kinds of shit to the poor people. But hey, thank you.
Yeah, you're spot on it, man. I'm just sitting back letting you go, man. Just get the people in the comments are saying we need this kind of energy. We really do. Absolutely. Because for so long, that's one of the things. So long, I think, the Democratic Party, that they lost the working class people and then had a hard time connecting back with them. And I think more and more people, though, are starting to look to people that are just regular people, and want to stand up and fight for the working class. And I do want to talk about what we saw yesterday, because I know you're a veteran and I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Yesterday was the anniversary of my grandfather's death, and he was a World War II veteran. And I talk a lot about him here on the channel because I learned so much from him, and he was a history buff and used to challenge me. Back when I was a kid, he challenged me to learn all 40 presidents. Back in the 80s, I had to learn all 40 of them. And then he pushed me to learn what state they were from and pushed me to learn what party they were in. He was just one of those guys. And yesterday on the anniversary of his death, I sat there and watched an American president just sell us out to Russia. And
Wow.
it just, I still to this right now, man, I'm still not fully got over it. It's like out of all the things that we've seen since Trump's been reelected, there's been a lot of moments that really stung, but yesterday really stung for me on a level that I can't even really fully explain yet. And I just wondered how you were feeling watching that.
Donald Trump is Putin's bitch. That's what he is. That's what I don't give a shit. I say what I say. And JD Vance, absolute garbage. Remember that the world begged Vladimir Putin, please do not invade the sovereign nation of Ukraine. And Putin didn't care. He invaded it anyway. And, Zelensky has been fighting for his life. He has been fighting for his country. And everybody in the world should be absolutely pissed at Putin for his aggression. But what do we see? We watched yesterday a president of the United States literally stump for Vladimir Putin. I'm going to tell you right now, we keep hearing these things, and now they're saying that they started grooming Donald Trump back in 1987, and it's all starting to make sense. It's starting to make sense. And the only problem that I have is I really wish more people would start stepping up and saying what they need to say. What we watched yesterday was we watched our country literally cut ties with some of the best people on the face of the earth, people that are fighting for their very existence. And we watched Donald Trump, literally, he's cutting all supplies, all funding to Ukraine. And folks, let me tell you something. The good thing about this is that Europe is not putting up with that bullshit. They have now agreed that they're going to do everything that the United States was doing to make sure that Ukraine stays in this fight. Because let me tell you something. If you people don't realize this, there is a reason why we are where we are when it comes to this situation. Right after they invaded Ukraine, the plans were surfaced that showed that their plan is to take Ukraine and then immediately go into Moldova. So if they take Ukraine, go into Moldova, who's next? That would be Romania. Then you're talking about Poland. What you're seeing here is Vladimir Putin wants to take Russia back to a time when they owned 50% of Europe. And let me tell you something. As a person that's an actual Cold Warrior, I remember going to Berlin, Germany, before the reunification, where it was still East Germany, West Germany. I remember watching Soviet soldiers pulling guard and stuff. I'm going to tell you, I crossed over. One time we went up there on a 4-day weekend, and we got to cross over to the other side, to East Germany. And I'm going to tell you, it was like the Wizard of Oz backwards. Like, you're on this side of Berlin, and there's restaurants, and people are everywhere, and it's just really a cool vibe. And then we drove through one of the places where you could go through the wall. And it was like everything was in black and white. The cars, there were no name brand anything. And people had to live like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, ask any German that used to be from the other side, if they're ever willing to go back, they will fight to the death to ever keep from that happening. And let me tell you something. That's what Vladimir Putin wants. He wants to take all that back because, once again, Russia is not exactly a place that's known for growing crops or anything else. I'm going to tell you, I've flown over Siberia. That alone is a 4-hour plane ride, and you may see 1 or 2 lights at the entire time you're in the air. That's it. That's not a lot of land. Russia, everybody in Russia lives over here. They got all this land, but they live over here. And they don't have a lot of capabilities. And that's what he's doing. He wants to take back, Ukraine, because Ukraine is like number 4 in the world in terms of grain and other things like that. They got all kinds of minerals and stuff. And, that's one of the reasons why they've done what they've done. And they're not going to stop at Ukraine. And anybody in America that's siding with Donald Trump, you're not paying attention, or you're just not a smart person. You have no idea how to research anything, because I'm telling you right now, what we have right now is a Russian asset in the White House. And I will tell you, I was very happy that yesterday, General Mattis, General Austin, I think General Milley, and a couple others actually finally stepped up and called it what it was. I think that that's important. I think that right now they're trying to turn our military into nothing more than a force that Donald Trump can send at his enemies. And make no mistake about it, If Donald Trump has the thoughts that let's say the people in West Virginia wake up tomorrow and they realize it was all bullshit, he just wanted their votes, he don't give two shits about them, and they started raising hell, I'll tell you right now, if Donald Trump could snap his fingers and make his military go down and crush people that oppose him, he would do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Make no mistake about it. You know, we talk, the Republicans screamed forever about the Democrats are going to take your guns. They have never come after your guns. They do believe in common sense gun reform. But I'm going to tell you, did you see the video with Pam Bondi and Donald Trump where she was talking about, you know, well, this is what we've got to do. We've got to get in there. We got to get these guns. Did you read the letter that come from Roger Stone a couple of weeks ago? Because that letter basically said, this is what we got to do. Only the patriots are going to be allowed to keep their guns. Everybody else that's not deemed a patriot is going to lose their firearms. And once again, folks, we never took an oath to a president. We take an oath to the Constitution, and the Constitution has a Second Amendment. The Republicans like to scream how important the Second Amendment is. But let me tell you something. There's going to come a damn time when you're going to understand if we keep going down this path with Donald Trump, they are going to come after people's guns, and it's going to be ugly.
And as somebody that, you know, that was in the military and understands it, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question the right way. What if it was to come to something like that? Do you think that the military would be willing to carry out something like that? Would there be people that would stand against it, or would they follow orders? Because I've had a lot of people asking questions like that, especially since yesterday.
Well, let me tell you, I'm worried. I'm worried because, you know, let me tell you something. They fired the senior person of color, a 4-star general, from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Fired him. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They also fired the woman that was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Where's the outrage? You know, you got Pete Hegseth there right now, and they're already tanking people. People are getting notices that it's time for you to retire. You know, let me tell you something. If you are in the military, you don't have to be an officer. You don't have to be a non-commissioned officer. Anybody that's in the military, you have a duty. And that is, if a person gives you an order, if that order is unlawful, illegal, or immoral, you have a duty to refuse. And oh, by the way, doing anything against the Constitution is absolutely unlawful, and you should stand against that. And that's what needs to happen. And we need to start seeing that. I want to see these generals come out and say, look, we're not going to sit here and allow you to send a guy who made it to the right, you know, he was a major in the National Guard. Folks, I'm sorry. Look, I love the National Guard. If it wasn't for the National Guard, we active duty folks would have never got to come home. But I'm going to tell you, when you a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year is not enough to make you a subject matter expert. And the Secretary of Defense is a normal position that is held by people that are admirals and 4-star generals. And the reason why that is because when you come up the ladder in the military, once you make it to the rank of E5, before you pin sergeant stripes, you got to go. Well, back when it was called the Primary Leadership Development Course. When you go from E5 to E6, you go to BNOC. When you go to E6 through 7, you go to ANOC. E7, E8, there's always a level of instruction. Same thing with officers. Basic officer courses for second lieutenants. When you become a captain, you got to go to the advanced course. When you are a major, you go to the Command General Staff College. When you are a colonel, you go to the War College, and so on and so on. These people that make it to the rank of 4-star general, they have the best education in the world, and every one of them holds a minimum of a master's degree. Most of them have 2 and 3 master's degrees, and a lot of them also have doctorates. These are brilliant minds. General David Petraeus got a photographic memory. You can put a slide up that's got all kinds of shit on it, and he goes like this. Got it. And he's got it. That's the type of people that have been the Secretary of Defense. Now we've got a guy that looked into the face of members of Congress and said, I promise if you give me the job, I'll stop drinking. And what did we see? Not a week later, him sipping on damn scotch while he was answering questions at the UN. I mean, it's crazy.
And what do you think yesterday said to our allies? That's one thought that's went through my head a lot is, you know, our allies around the world saw that. What happens if suddenly they view that we are aligned with Russia?
They are. That's exactly what they are. There was a lot of people yesterday come out and said, look, you know, we can no longer trust on the United States of America. We can no longer trust them on being, the clear head, the leader. We are no longer the leader of the free world. We are no longer at all the leader of the free world. We've lost that. And I want to answer a question because some people are like, oh, you supported Trump. Let me tell you something. Back in 2016, here's something that I did not like. I thought that it was absolutely unacceptable. When I was a kid growing up, they told us all, and they told you too, that if you are honest, if you go to school and you work really hard, one day you could be the president of the United States. Everybody was always thought you could be the president. And then we had a father and son become the president of the United States. And I thought, you know what? That right there tells us it's not that. You got to have a lot of money, a lot of power. And then we had a wife that was running to become president. And I will tell you, I wasn't for that. I thought that was horrible. And then, of course, we have Donald Trump, and he was running. And Donald Trump was saying all kinds of crazy stuff. But you got to understand, I come from the coal fields of West Virginia. And the last damn time we had a president that ever spoke about the coal fields of West Virginia in a positive way was JFK. That's right. John Kennedy was the only person who ever spoke about West Virginia and did so in a way that made the people of West Virginia proud. And all of a sudden, you got this guy, Donald Trump, saying, I'm going to do what I can to help those people and help those coal miners out there. Because let me tell you something. You may not like coal, but don't you hate that coal miner? Because that coal miner's working the only damn job in the daggone state that will allow him to be able to put food on his table and actually live where his nose is not right at the water line. So you can't blame those people for those jobs. But once again, Donald Trump was the only one that was talking about giving those people a better way of life. And I held my nose because I didn't like what he said, grab him by the you-know-what. I held my nose and I said, you know what? I'm going to support him. Because daggone it, you know what? I don't want to see a husband and wife team since we just got rid of a father-son team. And I held my nose. And I'll tell you what, within 2 weeks, I was already ripping him a new one. Because as soon as he daggone took over, we knew right away he was full of shit. So I'm sorry. I apologize. You know, I ask for people's forgiveness. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't, I don't give two shits. I'm going to fight my fight. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to take care of my family. And I'm going to keep being a voice for the people that don't have a voice.
Man, I can completely understand that. And I would never cast stones at you over that one because I totally understand where you're coming from. And I felt the same way. I was a Bernie guy back then. I was pulling for Bernie. And one thing I remember, one of the conversations I had with my uncle, who was a lifelong Democrat, and I voted Democrat in every election since I've been old enough to vote, but I had an uncle that was a lifelong Democrat, and he was solidly behind Hillary Clinton. And I was like, I've just seen, I've seen Bushes and Clintons in the White House my entire life. And that's why I went for Obama when I did. I was like, back when Hillary was running against Obama, we had this conversation. And he was like, Hillary's got, more experience. She'd be the better candidate, whatever. And, we'd get Bill Clinton back. A lot of people would say that, we'd get Bill Clinton back. And I'm like, well, but I don't want families running this. I don't want that. So I get where you're coming from with that. And I had the same conversation with my uncle about, we've seen Bushes and Clintons in the White House for so long that we want something different. So I've had several people here on the show before in the past, Texas Trey and different folks who voted for Trump or supported him in 2016. And then, they regretted it pretty quick, so I totally understand it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, goodness gracious, it's what we see. Donald Trump is not a leader. He is not a leader. And this is what really gets me is all these poor people. First off, ladies and gentlemen, there's no such thing as a poor Republican. That's an oxymoron. You may think you're a Republican and they love you voting Republican, but those Republicans don't give a shit about you. That right there is case in point what we saw the other day when they passed their budget that's going to absolutely decimate the middle class and the poor. So let me tell you something. That's going to hurt West Virginia greatly. And once again, for 2 weeks, West Virginia sat in friggin' floodwater while Donald Trump played golf and didn't even acknowledge that they were underwater. So they don't care about you. They have never cared about you. Donald Trump even said, I just want your vote. I don't care about you. Yeah. I mean, folks, we've got to start electing people that will go to Washington, D.C. and fight the right fights. It kills me. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's also time for that discussion that says, you know what? There's some areas in this country where a person of color or a woman will never win. And I'm going to tell you, Marge the Trainwreck Green. Now, she's a woman. Marge the Trainwreck Green will not be beaten by anybody other than a white man. And I'm going to tell you why. Everybody remembers Marcus Flowers. Marcus Flowers is a great friend of mine. He ran the best race in the country a couple years ago against Marge the Trainwreck Green. He raised $30 million. He should have won that race. But 15 minutes after they closed the polls, the race was announced. Marge Green. Really? Do you know that the last election that just recently happened, a one-star general, a man of color, ran against Marge the Trainwreck Green and lost just like Marcus Flowers did? And here's the thing. A person of color is not going to be able to win in her district because her district is racist. Or her district just has a lot of people that just refuse to vote for anybody other than a white person. And I'm not going to say that that's racism. It could be how you take it. But I'm going to tell you that, I'm sure that there's somebody in her district. And I tell this story all the time. When I was in Logan County, West Virginia, we had a guy by the name of John Turner, and he owned and operated a gas station. And John was one of those people. He's just a great man. If you went to him and said, look, John, man, I get paid tomorrow, but I don't have gas and I need gas. He'd write it down and give you gas. No problem. He was that guy. He was one of the best people in Logan County. And then one day somebody said, hey, John, why don't you run for county clerk? We need somebody in that daggone courthouse that has honor and integrity. And he did. And he won. And for the past 12 to 15 years, he's been in that position. And he is a wonderful human being that does the right thing every single day, works his ass off for the people. We just have to find those people wherever they are and convince them that it's time to throw your hat in the ring. Let me tell you something. I never in my life liked a politician. If a politician shook my hand, I wanted to Purell up and wash my damn hands. When I went back to West Virginia, I had no desire to get into politics, didn't like politics. But I saw pure corruption. And one day, a man decided to threaten my father. And I said, okay, I'm going to run after your ass now. And people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this. I actually won my state Senate seat while getting facial reconstruction surgery because I took a pipe to the back of the head. And then I got rolled over unconscious and they broke 8 bones in my face with brass knuckles. Both my eye sockets were broken, both nasal passages broken, and I had 4 breaks on my jaw. That's how dirty politics are in Southern West Virginia. But wow. I couldn't stop. I'm going to tell you, I was campaigning from the daggone emergency room, because once again, you can't let these people win. They have been using bully tactics and getting away with it for far too long. We need people that are willing to put their foot down and say, you ain't going to push me no more. And that's why I want to go to Washington, D.C., because I'm going to tell you right now, when somebody starts talking about going after veterans' capabilities, I'm going to get in their face. When somebody starts talking about daggone shitting on unions, I'm going to get in their face. I'm going to push to overturn Citizens United, and I'm going to push the friggin' daggone tax a billionaire class at 90%. And I don't give 2 shits what they have to say about it. We have a lot of corruption in Washington, D.C., and that's why we need more people up there that's willing to fight for the people. We got a lot of people up there that are sitting silent, and they're happy sitting silent. And that's on both friggin' sides of the aisle.
It is. And I'm glad to hear you say that because, a lot of right now there's just a lot of uncertainty. We're going into uncertain times. And one comment I get from people all the time is they just feel sort of abandoned and they're disillusioned. They don't know which way to go. So I've said we got to have fighters. We got to have people stand up. It's not to me. It's not about waiting on the Democratic establishment to save us. It's about us standing up and saving ourselves, and making them come to us. I really feel like that. We have to just keep putting in the work and keep talking about the issues that matter and let people know what we really stand for. Because Donald Trump has done such a good job, and MAGA has done such a great job of and I'm not giving them credit for it, but I'm just saying they've done such a good job of shaping this narrative with the media. They've shaped such a narrative now that it's hard for people like me and you to get through to people that we grew up with. I'm sure there's people in the comment section right now I probably grew up with calling me a traitor, saying that I'm, speaking against what they believe. But I don't think they understand that people like us really do care about them. And deep down, it's like we want to see the people, we want to see our part of the world lifted up. We don't want to see it continue to be used by a grifter.
Yeah, and once again, like I said earlier, the reason why I resigned is I didn't think that it was right for me to still draw the pay as a state senator if I'm out here running around trying to become a congressman. So, I thought what I was doing was the right thing and being honest, and I catch hell from it. But look, at the end of the day, we've got people that when you don't do anything but listen to Fox News, I mean, that's why I said, so they had to pay a fine of $787 million for lying. That should be enough for you to say, click, I'm done with them.
Yeah.
But that's the problem is that, that's not how it is. And let me tell you something. I feel sorry for these people that drink from the fountain of Fox News, because Fox News keeps them in a state of panic. Like, oh my gosh, if we don't protect these Republicans, we're losing everything, while the Republicans are actually taking everything from you. Yeah. I mean, that budget bill is atrocious. I mean, look, the party that is okay with Nazi salutes, the party that's okay with Nazis running around waving their Nazi flags, that's their party. That's not the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party knows that we got to get back. We got to get back to supporting unions. We got to get rid of this right to work bullshit. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, anything that comes out of a Republican's mouth that sounds good, be careful. It's a friggin' rouge. Right to work is a union busting friggin' bill. That's all it is. Ain't nobody's right to work. Citizens United sounds great. Citizens United says basically billionaires have free speech too, and their money counts. So let me tell you something. This is why the Republicans don't really give a shit about the poor. This is why those Republicans are passing legislation that's going to give trillions of dollars to the top 785 people in this country. While 340 million people get shit on, 785 are going to get all the money in the world. And let me tell you something. They're doing that because guess who funds the elections for Republicans? So you see my link. My link is in there. You can donate to my campaign. But let me tell you something. You're never going to see Republicans doing this. Republicans don't take small dollar donations. Republicans promise these corporations that will do your bidding for you, and you're going to do super PACs. So let's understand this. An average person, you can give up to like $3,000 for the primary and $3,000. It's actually $3,500 now for the primary, $3,500 for the general election. So $7,000 is the max that you can give to any person that's running on a national level. We're talking president, we're talking Congress, things like that. Super PACs by the billionaires, they don't go to the same rules. They can literally put $100 million in their PAC and absolutely just do everything in their power to shut down the Democrats running. And let me tell you something. That's what they're going to do this next time because they know that they have to. They know that if they don't flood the Republicans with all kinds of money, that the Democrats are going to take back power. And they know if the Democrats take back power, we're going to freaking tax their ass at 90%. We're going to get rid of Citizens United. We're going to kill the freaking right to work bullshit. We're going to start supporting unions the way we should start supporting the unions. And we're going to get this country back on track.
And man, I really believe you can. And I've been sharing this link, and the Vol Queen moderating helping me out. We've been sharing this link. It's on the screen. If you see that link in the comments, go over to Richard's page and donate to his campaign. Let's help get a voice like this in there. I got a couple more questions, man, before we wrap it up. And I love this conversation. But you're a veteran. You served our country, and I really appreciate you. Thank you for that. My ex-wife is a military veteran with PTSD. And severe PTSD. And I just wonder, what are your thoughts of things that we could do to help veterans that suffer from PTSD? What's some things that you would like to see done?
Right now, every single person that hears my voice, if you have a Republican that is your representative, please call them and tell them to keep their hands off the Veterans Administration. Folks, I'm going to tell you, when you start killing capabilities, you're going to make it really hard for those of us that need appointments. Folks, yesterday, okay, right there, that was a cyst that I had removed yesterday. Right there is another cyst that I had removed yesterday. Right there is another cyst that I had removed yesterday. Let me tell you something. When they go after the Veterans Administration, they make it harder for people like me to get in to get those appointments that we need. And I'm going to tell you, I have breathed in burning bodies. I have been on vehicles that were destroyed with depleted uranium. I've been around burn pits, you name it. I've been exposed to it. I have had probably close to 30 cysts removed from my body. And I'm going to tell you, in my mind, I think that's probably how I'm going to end up going. One of these days, one of those cysts that pops up is going to be cancerous and it's going to kill me. I'm going to tell you that when you allow the Republicans to kill VA capabilities, you make it harder for me to be able to get an appointment. You make it harder for his wife to be able to get the care that she needs. And once again, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. I was combat arms, but people that were on the military bases that wasn't combat troops. Let me tell you something. Everywhere in Iraq and Afghanistan, everywhere that there were soldiers, you had mortars and rockets. I literally was almost killed twice by 2 mortar rounds. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't believe in God, hey, that's your free right. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm not a huge religious person, but I will tell you this. God saved my life. I had not only 1, but 2 mortars land right next to me. I actually picked one of them up right next to me. They had a 30-meter kill radius. I had 2 of them land less than 5 feet from me. And I should have been dead on both of those occasions. So let me tell you something. People come home, they have that PTSD. They have an issue. And I don't get all crazy. When 4th of July comes around, I'm like, look, I know it's the 4th of July. It don't make me crazy. I'm okay with that. I don't really go watch the fireworks for the most part because I don't really care. But, it doesn't, flip me out. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people that absolutely come home with PTSD where things like that really throw them back into a bad place. And if you care about veterans, I don't give a shit if they vote Republican, Democrat, Independent. I don't care. If you care about veterans, you've got to let these Republicans know that they've got to stop Elon Musk and his bullshit by killing our capabilities for the VA. You cannot support veterans and allow them to cut what they're cutting. And I don't give 2 shits. Oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's fraud, waste, and abuse. No, it's not. No, it is not. They are full of shit. Every single person that I know works for the Veterans Administration, works their ass off, and our veterans are their number 1 priority, and it needs to stay that way. Remember, they sent us to war for 20 straight years. They promised us that we will fix you when you come home, and now they're playing this bullshit. They started floating these articles that said veterans are getting fat and happy on their benefits. Let me tell you this. I deserve my retirement because I spent 24 years in the military. I deserve my disability because you broke my ass when I was in the military. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to deserve my Social Security too because I paid into it my entire adult life. They're saying now, if you draw retirement disability, you should get your Social Security. If you want to take my Social Security, you write me a friggin' check for every penny I paid into it, and we'll call it friggin' even. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to fight for Social Security. I'm going to fight for Social Security to stay. And I'll tell you this too. Remember, this is another thing I want to do in Washington. You pay into Social Security for the first $124,000 you make. After you make more than that, they don't take it out of for Social Security. So if we raise that to $250,000, Social Security would be here for our children. If we remove that cap and said, hey, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, Bezos, all you jackaloons, you're going to pay into Social Security with every dollar that you make, we would not only have Social Security forever for people in this country, but every year we could actually enjoy real cost of living increases so that you don't ever have to worry about not making it from month to month. We watched a young lady when they started talking about killing SNAP benefits, a young lady having a panic attack saying, I go hungry the last week of every month so I can make sure my kids get to eat. Folks, they're going after her. They're going after her kids. We can fix this by making the friggin' greedy bastards in this country finally pay their fair share. And that's what everybody needs to be in. Even if you friggin' vote Republican, you should be literally saying everybody should pay their fair share. The billionaires get the best breaks that we don't get. And we've got to stand up and fight for what's right.
Man, I really appreciate you so much for being on. It's been a great show, and I love your fire and enthusiasm, and the people do too. A couple more questions. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hope you're okay. What do you think would be one of the biggest misconceptions people have about you? That's a question I get from time to time. And what do you think one of the misconceptions that people have about you would be?
People think I'm a troublemaker. Look, I'm not a troublemaker. I will say, if I see something wrong, I say this: never walk past something that you know is wrong and fail to make comment. For if you do, you've now accepted a new lower standard, and I will not accept the lower standard. So I will call anybody out that I see that's in the wrong. That's just who I am. But I'm going to tell you, I don't want to fight. I want to get along with people. When I gave my speech, when I made West Virginia the 29th state for medical cannabis, I held up 13 dog tags. And I said, cannabis cannot bring these people back, but cannabis can help those who hear their screams and see their faces when they go to sleep at night. And after doing that, I sat down and I was waiting on the vote. But Republicans started standing up and saying, because of what you just said, we're going to vote and be for your bill. And my bill made it into law that night. Wow. And I am grateful for those Republicans that were willing to cross the aisle. And that's the thing, is there's a lot of issues. If we can't get Republicans to agree that we've got to continue taking care of our veterans, then I've got a problem with that. And I have no problem getting in their friggin' faces. But I don't want to fight nobody. I want to make a difference. Everybody has a legacy. I want for my children to one day hear, your father fought the good fight. Your father, you could always count on Richard Ojeda to stand in the way of something that was wrong. And that means everything in the world to me. I want my children to know that their daddy cares about people. And I do. And I will never stop that.
Yeah, I love this. I love this here. It says, I get highly motivated when I listen to Ojeda. Let's go. Man, one last question. What keeps you motivated to keep fighting for working class people?
I think of my family. I think of my uncles that were coal miners, and I think about all the people that I grew up with that they deserve so much better. I think about my 24 years in the military, and I'm going to tell you that the friendships that are forged in battle far supersede those that are made on the playgrounds. And that's a fact. This is what fires me. It drives me. I want to do right. I want people to remember me in a positive light. I think everybody should want to have a legacy, but what motivates me is fighting for good causes. I started a nonprofit organization when I first retired down in West Virginia, and we sent 6,000 kids to school with new shoes on their feet. We pulled over 2,000 tires out of the creeks. We served over 10,000 meals to the hungry, the poor. We did a Christmas drive one year, and we put a toy in every single child's hand in Logan County, West Virginia. I love doing positive things because I think that that's what we're all supposed to do. I don't go to church. It's not that I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. I stopped going to church because I got sick and tired of watching people go to church on Sunday and then do nothing but spew hatred the moment they walk out that church. So, I don't want nothing to do with that. I believe that, if I want to do something for somebody, I can do it without people knowing it. I tell myself all the time, if I ever do get the opportunity where I become a rich person, which I don't think I ever will because I just don't really do that shit. But if I ever did, if something happened, I don't play the lottery. But let's say my wife went and bought a ticket and we won $500 million. All I think about all the time, who would I give money to? That's what I think about. I know a lot of people that I would absolutely say, here's $1 million, here's $1 million, here's $1 million. I would love nothing more than to be able to go to Walmart or Target or any store during Christmas with the credit card. And every time I see a family that looks like they struggle, I walk up and go, slice. There you go. I got you. Get out of here. Free. You're free. Get. I mean, that's what I would love to do more than anything. But I did love doing that nonprofit stuff in West Virginia. And I did it also in Afghanistan. And I'm going to tell you, that's what saved our lives. Because I'll tell this story. When I was in Afghanistan, I was on a two-man team. Believe it or not, they actually briefed the 101st Airborne Commanding General that Major Richard Ojeda and Sergeant First Class Monty Montgomery were prime candidates for a Taliban snatch and grab. We almost got kidnapped by 60 Taliban fighters one time. But what we did was when we got over there, I started taking pictures of the poverty that I saw, and I started sending them home on social media. Next thing you know, I start getting boxes of shoes. So we start loading up these shoes in our trucks. And there's only 2 truck vehicles. I'm driving with my interpreter. He's driving with the mechanic, and we go. And we get to a village. In the beginning, when we first got there, we'd drive through these villages, and literally Afghani people would look at us and go like this. But you can't shoot them for that. If they had a gun, I could pop them. But they didn't have a gun. They did this. So I can't do nothing. But what we started doing is we would stop at the beginning of the village, and I would scream, baksheesh, which is like gift. These little kids would come running. And we'd sit them on the back of the truck. We'd take off their shoes. And oh, by the way, it was like a boot and a flip-flop. There were never, hardly ever anybody wearing matching shoes. And we'd put new shoes on their feet. And when we started sending those pictures of us putting shoes on these kids' feet, I started getting shoes like crazy. I got 135 boxes of shoes in one day. And we would do this at every single village. And now all those people that did this, they were doing this. The village elder would come out and would invite us into their area and would feed us and give us more food than they had on their plates. But once the village elder come out and greeted us, that was it. The whole community then all of a sudden loved us dearly. And I tell you, I feel bad because the group that replaced us, we told them, you need to do this. And they're like, nope, we ain't going to do that. Less than a month, they lost 6 people because it's just that bad over there. But I'll tell you right now, they appreciated us giving them warm clothing. We had people living in caves that we gave wood-burning stoves to. We helped these people survive the brutal winter. Let me tell you something. You ain't never experienced a winter until you spent a winter in Afghanistan, especially 10,000 feet up in the Hindu Kush Mountains. It was brutal.
Man, I really do appreciate you so much for coming on. You're so inspiring, man. Really, it's been great. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've been sharing the link to your campaign. Everybody, if you see this comment in the this is me, you're sharing this. If you see this link in the comment section, be sure to click on it. And let's help get Richard Ojeda in Congress because we need him so much, man.
Any amount matters. Any amount matters. $5 buys me a yard sign. That yard sign goes in the yard, and the neighbor says, "Who is that?" And then they let them know who I am. And the next thing you know, I may have that vote too. Yeah,
and I really appreciate you so much for coming on. It's been one of the biggest crowds I've had in a while. For so long, people's been requesting me to get you. We finally made it happen.
Well, and I just really if you like it, we can do it anytime you want, my brother.
That sounds good to me, man. I'm sure there's already going to be people saying, "Come on back." So you're welcome here. You're welcome here anytime. Just know that.
I'll go live with you right from my office in Washington D.C., folks.
We'll do it. We'll do it when you get fight. Yeah, when you get there, we're going to do that for sure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Get in the fight, folks. Get in the fight. Let's win this. Hey, brother, thank y'all very much. Thank you to all you folks out there. Sappers clear the way. Airborne all the way.
Thank you, Richard.
Cool.
All right, folks, that was a great time, great conversation with Richard Ojeda. It's been a long time coming. So many people have requested him over the years. And, I just sat back and got out of the way and let him talk. That was so inspiring. And that's the kind of energy that people on our side of the aisle needs more than ever. I really feel like that, we're not going to get anywhere by laying back. We got to come out strong, and he definitely did. And you could just tell that was somebody that cared about people, had a good heart. And so if you want to see some change, help it out. There's the link on the screen. If you see it in the comments, we've been sharing it. I want to say a special thanks to everybody that tuned in for this special edition of the Tennessee Brando Show. We had a great time, and he's welcome back here anytime. And when we get him in office, we'll definitely have to go live from the office. That's for sure. So, everybody be sure to click on that link, and thank y'all so much. I'm going to be attending a protest in Nashville on Tuesday. I normally go live, but I may go live from the protest. So just keep a lookout for that. We're going to go, marching forth for democracy. We're just going to keep moving. We're going to keep fighting the fight. We can't back down now. There's so many people from time to time will say, well, now what are you going to do? Well, we're going to keep on going. Sometimes you get knocked down in life. Sometimes things don't go your way, but we didn't storm the Capitol. We didn't kick and scream. We didn't, bitch and moan. We're just getting it back together. And we got people like Richard Ojeda. We got voices like that are stepping up and speaking out. And so, the pendulum swings, folks. I really believe that. I believe the pendulum swings, and I believe sometimes it swings against you. But I do believe, like Richard talked about on the show, there's going to be a whole lot of people that start slowly realizing that they didn't get what they voted for. And I've always said that a lot of times it has to hit them for them to care. And I hate that it has to come to that point, but I believe that's what's going to happen when they realize just how much they've sold themselves out. They think they've owned the libs. And I know we had trolls in the comment section. I saw some of the comments going by about the trolls. Try to ignore those people, because while they think they're owning you, they're owning the libs. The only ones that got owned was them, and they got owned by Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of good people out there fighting the good fight, and Richard Ojeda is one of them. So if you can, be sure to donate to his campaign. I truly appreciate all of the everyone for tuning in, and all of the super stickers and all the donations. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that everyone enjoyed the show. Go back and share the replay with your friends, and let them know about Richard Ojeda, and encourage them to donate to this campaign. I truly appreciate y'all, and I'll see you again real soon.